How shall I stand before thee but in silence? I will keep silent before thee, not to excite the mind, not to array arguments for or against any condition, but to stand quietly, as one who has come home to the inner altar where no words are needed. It is out of the silence that the presence and the power of God comes. Therefore, let us first make room. Make room within. Make room by ceasing the inward noise that imagines itself the master. Let us, for a moment, drop even the problem we think brought us here, and stand naked of intention, expectant of nothing, available to everything. We are not here tonight to sharpen the machinery of the mind, not to perfect a technique, not to learn a new method with which to wrestle anxiety to the floor. We are here to acknowledge that anxiety cannot live where God is consciously realized. Anxiety feeds on narration, on the inner tale of separation, of me apart from source, of life at risk because I am alone. But anxiety cannot feed on presence. It withers where the kingdom is no longer a statement, but a felt reality. Not by might, not by mental power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. And so we begin where spirit begins, with silence. Do not look up to heaven as if the answer were elsewhere. Look within, for the kingdom of God is within you. Not a far country, but the near country. Not tomorrow, but this breath. And the quiet proof I speak of is not something I can argue you into, nor something you can think yourself into. It is noticed in the stillness, as one notices the end of a storm by the sudden absence of wind, by the unannounced calm that reveals it has taken its seat. So let us make our first consent. Not an attempt, but a consent. Close the door within you to the clamor of getting, and open the window of listening. One breath, just one, not to get results, not to fix a feeling, but to yield. Breathe, and on the outflow, say nothing, want nothing, reach for nothing. Simply be before the inner altar. Keep this ear open, not the outer ear only, but the inner ear, the listening place just behind thought. Let thought pass as clouds pass. Let the words I and mine be still. Not the self asserting, but the self revealing. Not effort, but surrender. Not method, but presence. And in this hush, we lay the foundation. The proof begins when we cease striving and consent to inner silence. Here, now, as your breath comes and goes, do not add or subtract. Just be. Heaven is not postponed. The Christ within is not deaf. In the quiet, the invisible announces itself without speech, and fear, finding no story to live on, falls away as mist before the sun. Anxiety, as you have known it, is the mind projecting time, tomorrow, next week, the nameless what if, and then demanding that the body pay the bill now. It is the rehearsal of futures the spirit has not written, the collecting of dues on a story that has not occurred. You recognize it because it quickens the pulse and tightens the chest. It pulls breath up into the throat and makes an accountant of the heart, tallying losses that are only numbers in an imagined ledger. It is the mental wind that stirs up the lake and then accuses the water for being rough. All of it is a timing trick, a projection of then into now, and the body, faithful servant that it is, tries to obey a master that has no authority in truth. What sustains that wind? Attention, and the narration that claims you are an isolated center that must secure its tomorrow by personal management today. Anxiety feeds on story, the inner newscast recited every hour, the rehearsals of dangers dressed in the clothing of facts, the parade of pictures without life of their own. These are not realities. They are moving images on a screen, animated by your gaze, strengthened by your commentary. The more the mind tells the tale of me alone with my problem in a world of forces, the more that tale loops and accelerates, as if it were feeding on its own echo. You have noticed how the same thoughts circle, how the same scenes replay with slightly different costumes. Notice also that the narrator insists you stand apart from your source, separate, unsustained, and therefore at risk. That is the root of it. Narrated separation. Anxiety requires a thinker who believes himself separate, a manager who must arrange, defend, and predict by his own might. It requires your consent to be a private mind surrounded by other private minds, your consent to be a self-authorized caretaker of a life you did not originate. But it cannot feed on realized presence. Presence is not a mood to manufacture or a consolation to imagine. It is the felt fact of being already here, closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet, the life that is your life, the mind that is your mind. God must be felt. God must be realized. God must become an experience. And when that is felt, even faintly, the narration loses its center. For who will speak the tale of separation when oneness is consciously lived? So we do not argue with anxiety. We do not fix it with better thoughts. We do not whip the mind into obedience with the lash of will. Not by might, not by mental power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. The question before us, simple and revolutionary, is this: what becomes of anxiety when attention, without resistance and without analysis, takes its seat in the kingdom within and rests there? When there is nothing to tell and no future to manage, when the inner ear listens and the heart consents, by what food shall anxiety live? In that resting, you will discover that the wind has no substance apart from your breath, and when breath yields to spirit, the lake lies still of itself. Take no thought for the morrow. Let attention return to the presence that is already now, and watch what had claimed authority dissolve, not by defeat, but by starvation. Now here is the point at which many of you have stumbled. And I say it tenderly, because I have stumbled there too. You have tried to treat anxiety. You have taken it by the shoulders. You have argued with it, affirmed against it, breathed at it, read at it, quoted at it, while keeping it in the center of the room, enthroned as the guest of honor. Not by might, not by mental power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. Not by willpower dressed up as prayer, not by affirmations strained through fear, not by managing breath while out of breath within, but by surrender to the activity of spirit. The moment of turning is not when you finally win the argument with worry. The moment of turning is when you drop the argument altogether, and in stillness, make your contact with the infinite invisible. Be still and know that I am God is not a slogan. It is instruction. Not be busy about God, but be still and know. Not fix the symptom, but consent to presence. Not treat anxiety, but withdraw attention from it and rest attention in the kingdom within, until the only activity felt is the Christ activity that performs all things for us. Do you see the delicacy of the shift? It is the difference between I must get rid of this and Father, here I am. It is the difference between clutching at outcomes and opening the hands in trust. It is the difference between living as a private mind with private burdens and awakening to the one mind in which no burden abides. Not forecasting, but abiding. Not securing tomorrow, but resting in the now that is God. Not tightening the reins, but yielding the reins to the life that already lives you. Take this inner posture. Silently, secretly, without display, drop the problem in the lap of the infinite. Say within yourself, not to get a result, not to compel a sign. Thy grace is sufficient. The Father within doeth the works. Then leave it. Leave it. Leave the urge to peer over God's shoulder and supervise the work. Leave the itch to check how grace is coming along. Not by peeking, but by praising. Not by analysis, but by trustful silence. The deeper the silence, the more tangible the felt assurance that an invisible presence has taken the field. Grace is the only healer. The Christ is the only activity that harmonizes. And that grace, that Christ, does not operate under the spotlight of our scrutiny. It works silently, secretly, unseen, like leaven in the meal, like seed in the dark earth. When the personal sense yields, when the I that was trying to fix, to fend, to figure, sits down and becomes listener, the Spirit stands up and reveals that it has always been the doer. Not your plan, but God's order. Not your courage, but God's peace. Not your ingenuity, but God's sufficiency. If anxiety seems to rise, do not take the old bait. Do not return to treatments of fear with fear. Return to presence. Close the inner door, even for half a minute, and let the hush say what words cannot. One with God is a majority. In that consent, you will watch, without trying to watch, the great exchange occur. The mind that fretted gives up its throne, and the kingdom, already within, quietly assumes its rightful government. Now let us speak of the seat. Attention, left to itself, sits high in the head where arguments live, counting, comparing, forecasting. And from that balcony, it looks out over the world as if it were apart from the life that animates it. Bring it down. Bring it home. Let attention take its chair not in the gallery of thought, but in the heart of being. In the quiet, aware center where you are not trying to be, but are. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. That secret place is not a church, not a room, not a mountain. It is consciousness itself, your own awakened awareness of the presence. And mark this well, we do not visit, we dwell. Anxiety is strongest when you live outside yourself, scattered among outcomes, lodged in tomorrow's possibilities and yesterday's failures. Peace begins when you live in what you are, now, as awareness aware of God. There is a faculty in you that has been underused, the inner ear. Not the ear that listens for danger, for the alarm of the senses, but the inner ear that listens into silence for the still, small assurance of presence. Keep this ear open, not to catch words, but to receive a felt knowing that announces itself without sound. You will discover that as this listening becomes your native posture, the mind that was forever narrating problems loses its audience, and, losing its audience, loses its power. When attention takes its seat in the kingdom within, the anxious mind loses its throne. Do not mistake this for escape. You will still answer letters, sign checks, steward families, meet deadlines. You will still plan, but you will plan from the center. You will still act, but the action will flow, not push. It will be guided, not driven. The Father within, He doeth the works. Not by mental power, but by the quiet current of grace that moves through a surrendered instrument. From here, choices clarify without strain. Next steps present themselves without rehearsal. The yes and the no speak with a calm authority that needs no defense. Let us bridge from word to seeing. For a few breaths now, sit where you are and let attention drop like a stone through water, down from the forehead into the chest, into that open place behind the breastbone where awareness seems wide and unhurried. Do not try to feel anything. Do not try to get rid of anything. Simply acknowledge, here I am. And then, thou art here. Listen. Just listen. No asking, no telling. Only a consent to be still. Notice how urgency loosens a notch by itself. How the body finds a slower rhythm without being instructed. How thought continues like weather, but no longer dictates your climate. That is the sign. Not fireworks, but a soft interior weight that says, I am. In that I am, the storm has no throne. Practice this relocation again and again throughout the day. From head argument to heart awareness. From outer commotion to inner seat. From managing to listening. Live there. Dwell there. The kingdom is not a theory. It is a place of rest within consciousness. And when you take your seat there, the appearance called anxiety lacks the chair from which it ruled, and must pass as any shadow passes when the light has been turned on. One with God is a majority. Stay in that majority by staying at home within. Now comes the quiet proof. By proof, I do not mean a debate won by cleverness, or a chain of logic that corners an opponent. I mean the direct observation that darkness cannot stay where light is admitted. I mean the felt fact that when presence is consciously realized, that which called itself fear finds no oxygen. The proof is in the seeing, in the being, not in the saying. Be still and know, and in the knowing, watch. Here is the mechanics of what has troubled you. Anxiety rises as two threads twisted together, sensation in the body and thought in the mind. Sensation may be the quickened pulse, the flutter at the solar plexus, the breath that climbs toward the throat. Thought rushes in with pictures and sentences. What if? Suppose. This time it will. Now, presence is not the improved thought about those sensations, nor is it the trained suppression of them. Presence is the awareness that notices both without panic. It is the I that sees, not the I that grasps. It is the quiet witness, the Christ within, the kingdom realized here and now, closer than breathing. Keep this inner ear open and observe. The body does what it does. The mind offers its weather. And yet there remains a stillness that is not touched, a spaciousness that says, I am. Rest attention there. Do not fix the pulse. Realize God. Do not rebuke the image. Realize God. Do not heal a condition. Realize God. And you will discover the condition to be an appearance, not a power. Suppression clinches. Suppression says, I must not feel this. I must not think that. And with the very grip of resistance, it drives the current deeper into the nerves. Dissolution relaxes. Dissolution occurs as you take your seat in being, and the hand comes off the throat. The breath descends of itself. The urge to argue with the mind is replaced with the gentle, wordless awareness of God presence. In that atmosphere, the sensation may still ripple, the thought may still flicker, but they are like fish moving in a clear lake rather than a storm whipping the surface, visible, harmless, passing. I have watched this here and across the world. When you cease to treat anxiety and instead make your contact with the infinite invisible, the inner climate changes, and that climate, not your will, dissolves the fog. Test this. Do not wait for ideal conditions. Use the very moment in which anxiety appears. The instant you notice the climb of breath or the rush of what if, do not wrestle. Return. Do not diagnose. Be still. Do not predict. Listen. Let the awareness drop into the heart of being and simply acknowledge, Thou art here. Say nothing more. Remain as listener. 30 seconds is enough to prove a principle. If the mind runs back to its rehearsal, do not chase it. Let it parade as a shadow while you stay seated as light. One with God is a majority. In that majority, you will watch, not by intent but by grace, the storm spend itself without a fight. Repeat this again and again. The proof does not grow old, it deepens. Each time you outlive the wave by realizing presence, a habit shifts its loyalty from fear to God. You are not winning battles. You are abiding in the one in whom no battle is found. And in that abiding, anxiety is not defeated. It is outlived, outshone, and out-identified, revealed for what it always was, a passing appearance before an untroubled light. Let us now look beneath the phenomenon to the principle. For if you understand the principle, you will not be maneuvered by appearances. There are not two minds, your fearful mind and God's peaceful mind, contending within a fragile skull. There is one mind. God is the only mind. As a matter of spiritual truth, you are not a private thinker trying to reach God. You are an activity of the one divine consciousness appearing as individual being. The kingdom of God is within you because the mind of God is the mind of you. The life of God is the life of you. The soul of God is the soul of you. Closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. From this standpoint, what are those intrusive thoughts that seem to invade at inconvenient hours? The what if, the suppose, the racing tally of dangers. They are not messages from reality. They are mental weather. They are not oracles. They are echoes. They are not personal to you. They are impersonal currents that find a receiver only if you consent to be one. Treat them as you would wind at the window, noticed, not obeyed. They do not carry authority because they do not originate in the one mind. Authority comes from source. Appearance comes from suggestion. Know the difference. When an anxious suggestion presents itself, you need not stamp it out. Simply refrain from authorizing it. Refuse to sign the paper. Without your signature, it has no credit in your house. Here is where many have been trapped. By accepting two powers. As long as you admit both presence and anxiety as powers, you are condemned to arbitration between them. But God is one, and in that oneness no rival abides. Not by pitting courage against fear, but by recognizing only presence as reality, the conflict ends by omission. When light is realized, darkness is not out-argued. It is unrecognized as substance. So with fear thought. It is not a second mind to be subdued. It is a no thing to be unmasked. Take this into your very sense of self. You are not a frightened personal self trying to survive a dangerous universe. You are the infinite expressing as you. Life lives itself. I live, yet not I. The Christ awareness lives itself as my very being. In that identity, fear thought loses its parentage. For to what shall it lay claim when you cease to be a private mind? It becomes what it always was, passing weather before an untroubled sky. And this prepares our practice. We are not setting out to perfect personal thinking. We are consenting to abide as awareness, not to polish the mirror of the intellect, but to rest as the clear space in which images appear and vanish without edict. Keep this inner ear open. Let thoughts come and go as fish in a clear lake. Do not follow, do not fight, abide. The false claim fades in the light of what is real. One with God is a majority. In the realization of one mind, fear thought is stripped of authority and passes on like a rumor that finds no believer. Hold to this foundation, and you will discover that harmony is not achieved, it is revealed where the one is consciously lived. Now let us look at how this becomes life. How what you have glimpsed in the inner seat becomes the way you walk the street, answer the telephone, make decisions about children and doctors and employment. Take no thought for your life is not an invitation to neglect. It is freedom from the anxious forecasting that has tried to keep you safe by wearing you out. It is not carelessness. It is care through consciousness. Not indifference, but divine order. Not drift, but guidance. Not by might, not by mental power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord. There are two lives available to you from moment to moment. One is the life managed by vigilance, eyes always scanning the horizon, heart always calculating contingencies, mind always forming committees of opinion to vote on the next move. This life is noisy within, even when it is quiet without, and its results are as fragile as its fear. The other is the life lived by inner guidance, attention seated in the kingdom, listening in silence, receiving direction in simple increments, one step, one phone call, one act of kindness, 1 hour of rest. In this life, the lamp does not light the entire highway. It illumines the next few feet, and those few are always enough. Guidance is a fruit of silence. As anxiety reduces its claim upon your attention, the next right thing becomes disarmingly plain. Often it is not dramatic. It may say, wait. It may say, not that, this. It may say, call her now, or send the note, or go for a walk. It may say, apologize. It may say nothing at all, and in that quiet, you will discover that doing nothing is the doing required. The Father within doeth the works. Our role is to consent, to be available, to follow the gentle peace that marks the way. But my responsibilities, my family, my health, you say. Yes, and I say to you with all the conviction of experience, the presence within is not less practical than fear. It is more. Fear can rush you to the wrong hospital. Grace can send you to the right door at the right hour with the right words on your lips. Fear can have you work 12 frantic hours and miss the one conversation that would have opened the channel. Grace can lead you to the conversation in 10 unhurried minutes. Do not mistake quiet for passivity. This silence is not a retreat from duty. It is the inner anointing that makes duty fruitful, tender, precise. Here's a subtle discipline that will save you much wasted motion. When anxiety demands immediate certainty, answer with stillness. Do not bargain for signs. Do not audition outcomes. Do not whip the mind for speed. Sit down inside. Acknowledge, thou art here. Wait until you can feel peace, or until the next right action stands up by itself. Certainty will come either as rest, no move now, or as a step so simple you almost overlook it. If you are pressed to move without peace, do the smallest decent thing at hand. Wash the dish. Send the thank you. Take the short walk. Often, in the doing of the humble next, the larger light appears. This is living without taking thought. It is not the abdication of intelligence. It is the enthronement of the one mind as your intelligence. It is the end of nervously inventing a future and the beginning of watching God reveal the present. One with God is a majority. In that majority, grace does not merely calm you, it carries you, it guides you, it sustains you without strain. Keep this ear open, keep this seat, and you will find that the life led by the infinite invisible is safer, kinder, and more accurate than any life managed by personal fear. There is a price to be fulfilled, and it is not a price of strain or of barter. It is the quiet coin of attention, paid in little offerings throughout the day. Not to buy God, not to purchase peace, but to make room for what is already here. Freedom is stabilized by a simple discipline, brief, frequent returns to the presence within. If you will accept this as your way for a season, you will discover that the climate of your inner life changes, and in that climate, anxiety cannot thrive. Set for yourself 3 or 4 periods each day: morning, midday, late afternoon, and at bedtime. 2 or 3 or 4 minutes apiece. Not a marathon, a visit. Close the inner door. Sit, stand, or pause wherever you are, and without words at first, acknowledge, thou art here. Let the breath find you. Let the inner ear open. If a phrase wants to rise, be still and know, thy grace is sufficient. The Father within doeth the works. Let it rise once, perhaps twice, and then release it into silence. Not by might, not by mental power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord. These are not exercises in thinking about God. They are pauses in which you let God be God in you. Sincerity rather than effort. Presence rather than performance. Between these set times, make micro-returns, 12 to 20 times a day if you can. A glance within. A gentle interior nod. Here is the presence. Then silence. Not even a full minute, just enough to drop the thread of worry and pick up the thread of God awareness. You can do this at the sink, at the red light, in a hallway, on a stair, between sentences in a meeting. Keep this ear open. Let these touches be light, frequent, unannounced. The deeper the silence, the greater the felt assurance, but do not chase depth. Accept what is given and move on. At the same time, observe the negative injunctions that clear space. Stop rehearsing outcomes as if fear could guarantee safety. It cannot. Stop searching the mind for guarantees as if the personal intellect were your savior. It is not. Stop feeding the news cycle of fear when you are already raw. You are not obligated to entertain calamity headlines as your daily bread. Cut off the supply lines of dread, and you will find your brief returns become more potent, because the inner atmosphere is less crowded with alarms. Now, measure success correctly. Do not call it failure if symptoms arise, if thoughts clamor, if breath climbs. Call it practice if you return, quickly, gently, without drama. The question is not, did I have a perfect day? The question is, how soon did I remember? A day of 100 small returns is a day of great faithfulness. Each return is a thread. Enough threads, woven silently, become a garment of quiet. These small pauses compound. They are like leaven hid in 3 measures of meal. Invisible at first, governing at last. After a week, you will sense more room around your feelings. After a month, you will notice that anxiety finds less hospitality. No chair, no microphone, no spotlight. After a season, you will discover that guidance comes in plain steps, and that the old urgency has lost its badge. If you miss a period, do not scold. Begin again. If you forget for half a day, do not dramatize. Begin now. One with God is a majority. Pay this simple price with joy, and you will live in the atmosphere where the infinite invisible conducts your way, and fear, lacking food and throne, passes as a shadow before the sun. Now let us be plain and free you from a subtle cruelty you have practiced against yourselves. Anxiety may return. The wind may rise again at the edge of night, the breath may climb, the mind may offer its familiar parade. This is not a verdict against you, not the revocation of grace, not the undoing of last week's light. It is an invitation, holy, immediate, to deeper abiding. Each recurrence is another doorway that says, be still and know. Take it. Here is the use of the moment. Notice. Do not launch into argument. Do not bargain. Do not promise better behavior for a token of peace. Notice. Then soften. Unclench the jaw. Let the shoulders descend. Place the tongue at rest. Release the belly to receive the breath. Soften. And in the softening, withdraw authority from the alarm. Then return to presence. Quietly, secretly, within, acknowledge, thou art here. Just that. Then listen. Keep this inner ear open. No negotiation with fear thought, no chasing it up and down the corridor of the mind. Only the gentle seat in the kingdom within, the consent to let grace be grace. Not by might, not by mental power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. Do not be frightened by the body's alarms. Sensation is not prophecy. The quickened pulse is not destiny. The tightness at the throat is not an oracle. Let the body have its weather while you remain as sky. Feel what is felt, honestly, without dramatization, while refusing the story that stamps catastrophe on passing ripples. Sensation plus story equals panic. Sensation plus presence equals passing appearance. Attend to what is simple. Soften. Descend. Listen. If a phrase helps for a moment, the Father within doeth the works. Peace, be still. I am. Utter it once or twice, and then let silence complete the work. Beware spiritual ambition, for it sneaks in wearing a robe that says saint. Do not try to be a person who never feels anxious. That costume binds. Aim only to abide, again and again, in realized presence. Our way is not to build a reputation. Our way is to live in God. I live, yet not I. Christ liveth in me. Not the heroic self carrying the day, but the one mind revealing its calm through your ordinary minutes, your common rooms, your breathing. Measure the moment rightly. Each non-fight is evidence. Each time you refuse to negotiate with fear and simply return to presence, you have weakened the habit of anxiety and strengthened the habit of inner resting. The arc may be modest. The wave rises and falls, but quicker now, gentler now, with less story, less stampede. This is the quiet proof continuing. No headlines, no trumpet, only the dawning sense that harmony is native and fear is a stranger at your door. So when anxiety returns, let it ring the bell and find you at home. You need not answer with speeches. Open the inner door to silence. Notice, soften, return, listen. Let grace take the field. One with God is a majority. In that majority, you will discover that what reappears only to be redeemed by the same presence that has always been here, closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. Now, beloved, keep this close. Guard it as you would a flame in wind. Do not make a show of your practice. Do not argue about it at tables or perform it to be seen. When thou prayest, enter thy closet, and when thou hast shut thy door, pray to thy Father which is in secret. Keep your contact with the infinite invisible. Speak of it sparingly and only where love requires it. Let the evidence be your life, not your speeches. The presence does not need a herald. It needs a yielded heart. The deeper the silence, the greater the fruit. The greater the fruit, the less the need of announcement. Let the way be summed in the straight path we have walked together. Not fighting anxiety, but realizing presence. Not by might, not by mental power, but by my spirit. Not two powers disputing your peace, but one mind acknowledged as your very being. Not occasional comfort in emergencies, but abiding, dwelling in the secret place of the Most High. Not argument with fear thought, but the quiet omission that leaves it unfed. Not publicity, but secrecy. Not performance, but consent. Not managing the weather of sensation, but resting as the sky of awareness in which it passes. And now, a final simple invitation. Today, in the very next anxious moment, when the breath climbs, when the mind rehearses, do not reach outward first. Pause inwardly. Close the inner door. Whisper within, "Thou art here." And then listen. Keep this ear open. 30 seconds of yielded silence will tell you more of God than 30 minutes of bargaining ever could. Let the presence be felt, not imagined, not forced, felt. Then proceed as guided, one small step at a time. If you will do this quietly and often, the house will be occupied. Anxiety will knock, but it will find no vacancy sign, no empty rooms to furnish with its stories. It will discover a home already filled with a living peace, closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. No pressure, only practice. No hype, only quiet proof. In that atmosphere, fear has no tenure. It becomes what it always was, a guest without keys. I leave you with a blessing, not of words only, but of the realized presence that keeps you. May you dwell, truly dwell, in the inner secrecy where God is felt and known. May the Christ within perform all things for you, guiding you without strain, sustaining you without fear. May your nights be covered by the shadow of the Almighty, and your days ordered by the gentle light that rises from silence. One with God is a majority. Abide there. Keep the pearl. Walk softly. Speak little. Listen much. And be at peace. Bless you.